go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to continue letting us know where you're zooming in from in the chat. But just to start us off, my name is Alexa Schwartz. I'm Assistant Director of Alumni Programs in the Office of Alumni Relations. Thank you so much for being here as part of our OWL Together week. I imagine we've got alumni, parents, families, friends, faculty, staff at Rice, and some current students as well. And so we're really excited to highlight some of the incredible student leaders we have on campus. I will be monitoring the chat and text support. So this is a Zoom webinar, so that's why you can see us, but we can't see you. But feel free to continue to use the chat to send us messages, and we will be taking Q&A. So you can also use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And as you saw, this session is recorded, and we'll be sharing this recording on the Cadence digital platform, as well as our YouTube video vault. And I think that about covers it. I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Ernst from Student Activities, who will be moderating our session, who will then introduce our panelists.
Hi, everyone, and good morning. My name is Kristen Ernst, and I'm our Associate Director for Student Engagement in the Student Center at Rice University. So very excited to have a chance to speak with each of the students here this morning. A little bit more about my area in case you also have questions. I advise the Student Association, and I also oversee clubs and organizations at Rice, as well as our Owl Nest platform. So let us begin. So I'm going to go alphabetical. So Anna Margaret, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Margaret. I'm a senior from Martell College, and I'm currently the acting president of the Rice Student Association. Oh, and I also study history and French. Is that everything?
And Bryan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bryan Najera Demoraes, and I'm a senior at Baker College studying Latin American Studies and Political Science. And I'm one of the two co-presidents for the Hispanic Association for Cultural Enrichment at Rice, or Rice's Hispanic and Latinx Student Association.
David.
Hey, everyone. My name is David Karngba, and I'm a current senior from Martell College studying chemical engineering on a pre-med track. And I'm the current president for the Rice National Society of Black Engineers, and also the project lead for NECA 3 team of Rice Engineers Without Borders.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nia. I'm a current senior. I'm studying social policy analysis and sociology, and I'm the current president of Sid Richardson College.
So let's start off. First question, if each of you can tell us a bit more about yourselves and your current involvement experiences or student leadership positions, how you first heard about them, and what steps you took to get involved.
I could kick us off. So I'm involved in the Student Association, and I started getting involved when I was a freshman here at Rice. And that's been really one of the largest parts of my life throughout my time here at Rice. So I first heard about it as a new student during orientation week. There's this program through the Student Association called the New Student Representative Program, wherein you're able to apply to be a new student who goes to Senate and has an opportunity to learn more about Senate and get involved in Senate projects, and then see whether or not you're interested in staying in the organization. And I met one of my very best friends in the organization, and their name is Grace. And they're a vegan, and I'm also a vegan. And they were like, well, we should advocate for vegan food together. And that is how this all started. So we stayed really close and did a lot of work together through the organization. And it's honestly them and then all of the other people that I met in the org that made me want to stay in the organization. And so a little bit as well, in addition to the Student Association, I'm also involved through the Center for Civic Leadership. And I've done programs like Alternative Spring Break or the Lone Star Fellowship that have had a really huge impact on my time here at Rice, and also what I think I want to do with my life after Rice.
Yeah.
I can go next then. Yeah, so When I first came to Rice, I was just really excited about the residential college system in general. I remember first getting my college assignment for SID and immediately going to the campus bookstore and like finding a SID t-shirt. And I was just super excited to be a citizen. So I think I kind of first found out about the positions that were available through student government just during O Week. You see a lot of your student leaders present that kind of help facilitate the entire week and experience. And so I just really enjoyed being a part of the community like SID. And then I think as I kind of went throughout my freshman, sophomore year, I started finding different opportunities. There were new student representative positions at SID, but I actually decided to get involved in some of the committees that we had. We had a new building committee that formed at the end of the fall of my freshman year because SID is currently getting ready to move into a new building. And so we were in the early planning stages of that. So I got involved with that committee, and that was a lot of fun meeting with the architects and working with the magister at the time to kind of envision what we wanted in the new building. And then I also got to get involved in one of our RA search committees and look at different candidates for the RA position and talk through what we valued as a community in SID. And so because those committees had such a big focus overall on kind of, you know, setting values, mission statements, and really assessing the needs of a population, I think I learned through those roles that I, you know, one day would want to serve as SID president. And so I also had the opportunity to do other campus-wide leadership positions to kind of see what the campus-wide focus was. But then at the end, I decided that I really wanted to focus on my residential college community.
Cool. I can answer next. So for me coming in, you know, as an engineering student, I wanted to make sure I gave myself the opportunity to find as many resources as possible to help sort of complement my engineering curriculum, which is kind of what drew me to the organizations I'm involved with. Fortunately, during the student activities fair, I was able to see them and, you know, have that connection, really be like, wow, I'm interested in that. So that really kind of, I think, sparks the passion that kind of led me to joining a lot of these organizations, which I'm really grateful for today. I've been able to do a lot of cool things that have really expanded my worldview, that I think a lot of opportunities that I think I wouldn't have gotten just solely through the classroom experience. So I'm really grateful for being able to sort of be a part of these organizations and continue to give back since they've given so much to me.
So for me, I'm getting involved in the Hispanic Association for Culture and Enrichment at Rice, or HACER is our acronym. I started getting involved sophomore year as a college representative for Baker College, kind of just sharing and serving as a liaison for the organization at the residential college level, and volunteering as needed and just kind of promoting some of our events for the students at the residential college. And then I got really interested as I started to find more of a community at Rice through the organization, and wanting to experiment with different leadership positions on the club. And so the following year, I became the Cultural Events Committee Chair, and I was able to plan Ritmo, which is our annual cultural showcase. And it was super exciting because it draws in about, well, in that moment, it drew in about 450 attendees, and it was a 2-hour program with just lots of different presenters from Rice and from the Houston area, with food, of course. And so it was through like those stepping stones that I kind of felt the desire to run as co-president for ASID. And I'm complimented by my wonderful colleague, Stephanie Marchani. And I'm very happy that we get to work together and just kind of representing the community to the Rice administration at large, but certainly some of the other Rice departmental offices and our Rice community off campus. Otherwise, I'm also involved in the Center for Civic Leadership. And so currently I'm working on the Houston Action Research Team, a project which is basically where a group of 4 students from a diverse set of majors and interests kind of work together to tackle a certain issue. And so our team is looking at the intersection of immigration, education, and criminal justice in Houston. And I'm super pleased about that opportunity. Both of those, I think I kind of came across early on freshman year. So I started becoming interested in SID during my O week, actually, when I attended the affinity group, which was basically just like an hour or two kind of set aside for new students that are coming in. to find people of similar like interests or affinities. So I attended a Hispanic Latinx affinity group and was just able to see what SR did for us to kind of welcome us. And also with the Center for Civic Leadership, I kind of got interested from them. I think similarly like David from the club fair, and just really getting interested in their programming and how I could become more of a civic leader, both on campus and off campus in the greater Houston area.
Well, thanks everybody for giving some more background into your involvement experiences during your time at Rice. If we could shift to balance. So there's a lot on your plates as Rice students. So how do you balance your time with your student activities and academics? And how do those leadership experience outside of the classroom add to your overall Rice experience?
I can start us off on this one. So yeah, I think balancing for me is something that kind of came with time and practice, and really just, I think slowly working my way towards, I guess, increasing, how much I could handle just in terms of extracurricular activities versus doing my schoolwork. So over time, just sort of learning, how much time I should invest towards studying, while also being able to still commit to my organization, being able to gain that understanding for myself and develop sort of a routine and schedule I could stick to is what really helped me sort of learn the balance. And I think being able to have that balance is kind of necessary. There's nothing wrong with solely just wanting to invest in school, but I think being able to have those opportunities to really apply a lot of what you learn in the classroom to real world scenarios is really valuable, and it teaches you a lot. So I really value having the opportunity to be able to sort of engage in both sides of things.
Yeah, I also think that finding a balance between activities and academics is definitely a learning process. It's like there's so many things to get involved in at Rice, and I think a lot of times as freshmen, people can very easily sign up for a lot of activities and then all of a sudden look up and 2 months later and they have a lot on their plate. So I think it's really about prioritizing the activities that really mean the most to you and that really connect with you. So that way you still have time to, keep focus on your academics, right? Because you don't want to forget like the reason why you're at Rice and why you're a Rice student. However, like the things you learn in your leadership positions and in your activities outside of the classroom can also really impact you. So it's just understanding that both are important and not overloading yourself in one direction.
I think in some ways too, I think it's also understanding that they can certainly complement each other, your student activities and your academics. And so I think I can talk about this a little bit later too, more in depth. But as a Latin American Studies major, I certainly find material and concepts and problems to just tackle for my leadership in ASER. And so I think lately I've also been adding kind of a third component to my like time management skills, which is just personal time and quality time with myself and with my peers and with my friends, especially during this COVID moment that we're experiencing. And I think that also doesn't necessarily have to be totally separate from what you value as a student leader and as a student scholar. And so sometimes I try to find ways to remember how I can be an active participant in my culture, in my cultural communities, both even in my personal time. So taking some time to think about like, what coffee do I want to drink today, or like enjoying like taking some time out in the sun and just really like sitting down and taking some vitamin D. I think those are some other ways that I've been trying to help balance my academics and student activities, and they've certainly like helped give me more clarity for when I come back to tackle some organizational discussions on Slack or on GroupMe or the other interfaces that we students use.
I couldn't agree with you more, Bryan. And I think too, I've also noticed a lot of intersections between what I study or what I've like taken as terms of classes and then what I'm doing in the different student orgs I've been a part of. Also, please let me know if the birds are too loud. They're really active this morning. But for example, last semester, I was in a class called Crisis Management, and I had also just entered into the role of the Student Association president. And so it was so bizarre being in this course completely dedicated to crisis, as it felt like the world was just like tumbling down. And there was a moment in which Dr. Kirby, who's our VP of administration, who teaches the class, he brought in the head of crisis management to come talk to us about what was happening in COVID, and everything that we were talking about were ideas being floated about how Rice could address this crisis that was COVID, that were things that we hadn't thought about before, or were interesting like extensions of things we've discussed as like a crisis management team or as a student association exec team about how to address the challenges that we are about to face. And so it was so cool to hear other perspectives that I wouldn't have already heard and get new frameworks for how to deal with this thing that honestly, I could not even begin to start wrapping my head around. I didn't really have a chance to until, during the summer when it felt like so much of my and so many other people's time too was dedicated to figuring out how to navigate COVID and bring us back to campus. And then also as part of the alternative spring break, which I mentioned earlier, and I realized I didn't explain it. I'm so sorry. It's this program through the Center for Civic Leadership where you're able to go on a trip to another social context with between 7 and 9 other people and learn about a relevant social issue. And so my alternative spring break was on maternal mortality, and it gave us a lot of frameworks for how to interact like thoughtfully with communities of which you're not a part, and act as active allies and be supportive and learn about social issues that you might not experience or might not be as vulnerable to, and support others. And that's been really helpful when serving as student association president or just working within a student advocacy lens, because there's such a line between, working with and supporting others, and then also like speaking over others, which is something that I don't think any student leader ever wants to do. So those are just a few different examples in which like my classes have definitely contributed to and kind of enlarged my understanding of the spaces in which I'm working as a student leader.
Well, and on that similar balance topic, what do you wish, as you've reflected on your experiences, that you might have said no to from an involvement lens during your time at Rice?
I have an example. Okay, so it was my sophomore year, and I have a really hard time saying no to people. And my friend, he was hosting a musical or was like directing a musical. He was like, "We don't have enough people for this musical. Will you please be in it?" And I was like, "Okay, how much time will this take?" And he was like, "It'll take like 2 to 3 hours a week. You will be fine. Like this will be fine." But like at the same time, I was preparing for our alternative spring break trip and also about to transition into being Martell's president. And so I really did not have the time to be doing a musical. Signed up for it anyways. And as lovely an experience it was definitely like one of the more like draining and honestly like not as joy-giving experience as I think it could have been if it hadn't been for all of the other things that I was committed to, because 2 to 3 hours a week turned into like 2 to 4 hours a day of rehearsals, especially during tech week, which isn't something that I was prepared to do. And it definitely caused my relationships with others and then also other things that I was a part of in my academics to suffer because I was not able to say no to my friend when they were directing this musical. So I've learned, probably don't say yes to those things that don't have time for and it's not an active interest of yours. And I should not sing in public. That is all.
I think so thankfully I think I have been developing my like skill in saying no over my time at Rice. And that is like, the flip side of being a leader, excuse me, is knowing when to say yes and then knowing when to not say yes, which is basically just saying no. And so a couple of moments where I have done this, and then maybe one like that that in which I had said no. So it was sophomore year, and I was transitioning between majors. Because I entered actually as a biochemistry pre-med student, and then it was sophomore year that I decided to switch from what was actually a declared neuroscience and visual and dramatic arts theater double major to a Latin American studies and political science double major between my first semester of sophomore year and second semester. And part of that like growth moment was that I was in a neuroscience research lab in my sophomore year fall semester. And the PI she was super enthusiastic. She was super engaged with me, and I really appreciated her time and her energy in like developing me as a leader within the lab too. But she was also aware, and I made aware of her like the conversations I was having with my friends, with my like advisors about switching between majors. And she was so respectful of understanding, but not necessarily putting out that decision for me to make about whether I wanted to continue in the lab or not, since it may not have had as much relevance to my academic programs that I was looking into. And so I told her like I was still going to commit because I really appreciated her mentorship. But then after more reflection, like I realized that it was probably going to be some kind of time obstacle for me to start looking into different research paths and avenues and extracurricular opportunities the next semester. And so I went back to her and I told her that unfortunately I wouldn't be able to continue the next semester. But she was so understanding and so accommodating. And certainly she said she was going to miss the engagement in the lab, but she felt that it was probably the right decision for me. And that's something that I appreciated, I think, was just and as an example of how faculty, both at Rice and that Rice is connected to, such as through the Baylor College of Medicine, where my research lab was, how they can be understanding and open, even if they realize that maybe you're not going to continue work in their field of expertise, just as a human being, understanding that people grow and change. So that was one example in which I think I successfully said no. And I think one example in which I wish I had said no, I think is kind of a more broad like scheme across Rice. I was thinking about this, and it's kind of the issue that I sometimes face as being called to be a student of color, and then being a student or a leader of color, excuse me, and then a leader for all students, such as within a residential college setting. And so I think sometimes I've come across the issue about trying to define who my audience is and my target group. And I think now I'm learning more and more that I maybe want to prioritize more bringing peace and bringing healing to affected communities of color. And at the same time, in parallel, that will probably mean, engaging with and teaching partner and ally communities. And so I think that's something that I'm learning to take in stride as I kind of shift my focuses into different areas as an ASARE leader.
And thank you both for giving that perspective. I think it's important to give space for things that you wish had also, in hindsight, that you'd reflected on and had more and reflected on prior to saying yes. So I think it's good not only to go over and give examples of opportunities that you've engaged with that you've really enjoyed, but also things that, in hindsight didn't necessarily serve you in the ways that you thought that they might. And that's okay. And that's a part of your involvement experience as well. In terms of looking back at the experiences that you've had at Rice with your extracurricular involvements, what has been your proudest moment as a student leader?
I think for me, it's actually one of the campus-wide leadership roles that I did, which was I co-chaired Student Access and Inclusion Leaders, which works with the Office of Admissions on minority recruitment events, planning events such as SOAR and Vision. And I was actually a SOAR prospect myself when I was looking at schools, and it was that experience that helped me decide to go to Rice. And so I think when I came to Rice, I really wanted to get involved in planning it. And then I was able to be co-chair the next year, my sophomore and junior year. And I think planning that event with my co-chair, Leslie Laredo, was just a really meaningful experience. It was a lot of work kind of leading up to it, trying to find, different cultural clubs and organizations and representatives to present and perform at the event and really kind of help make these minority prospective students feel welcomed at Rice. But when the actual week happened and we saw the students start to show up and they started making their group chats and like meeting each other and just talking about, Rice and how much they loved it. And then in the evenings, they would all want to hang out with each other. And it was just, we watched these connections form over the weekend, and we could start to see students really find a connection at Rice even before they were Rice students. And so I think that was just a really proud moment. And then obviously later on, we're able to see kind of as their acceptances roll in the next semester and as they decide to choose Rice, it was just a great experience to kind of, plan an event, watch it all come together during the event. And then a few months down the line, actually see the results of that event when students end up choosing Rice and then end up in classes with you the next year. So I think that was just, I guess, one of my proudest moments.
Cool. Yeah. So I think, being a student leader right now has definitely come with a few challenges, just given the circumstances of everything. And I know for a lot of student leaders, it's been a struggle kind of trying to figure out how to still provide the same level of support to your members or to the community you're serving while having to go through this sort of virtual environment. And I think for us, our organization, we were able to partner with a few other organizations on campus this year to really kind of use the fact that things are virtual and leverage that actually as an advantage for our students by hosting the first ever student-led career fair, where we were able to bring in a bunch of new companies that typically don't show up at the regular career fair and provide students with the opportunity to connect with them and just find different resources that they might not have found or might not have been exposed to prior. So I think being able to really, utilize the situation and mobilize it to really help our members and help advance them, despite the challenges associated with everything, I think for me was extremely just inspiring and rewarding to be a part of long term. So.
Yeah, I feel like there might be a common theme that like when events come to fruition, like they serve as really great markers of like leadership. And so for me, I had previously mentioned this, but I planned Ritmo in 2019 as cultural events committee chair for SID, and it's a cultural showcase, so it was 2 hours long, and just lots of student acts and outside participation too. It was that moment that I felt really like proud to contribute this both to like the Hispanic and Latinx community at Rice, but also the general Rice population as a moment of teaching and of celebration. And so it was for that event, it was the first time that we had themed it even beyond ritmo, which translates into rhythm in Spanish. But we also branded it as La Nueva America, or the New America, kind of as a moment to tackle with and reflect on some of the challenges and tough moments that the community had been facing nationally in the past year, but also to remember that it's not just about sad stories, but that there are also highlights to celebrate with color and with food and with music. And so there was certainly some hiccups on the day up, and I feel like that's also when I was very pleased to be as a leader, because I was still able to bring in my former VADA theater skills and just go with the flow and kind of improvise as needed. But other than that, I think it hit home more personally too, and so like it's certainly an emotive experience for me and my team of my committee members. And so I think that's I guess I would just reflect on that time a lot, and I'm thankful that it's also we have a short video too to store it as an archive. So
yeah, I think for me, a way in which like my proudest moments differ for some reason, not for some reason, event planning gives me such stress. So events will never be my like, oh, because instead I'm like dying on the inside watching it. But I think a lot of the like satisfaction I get is from watching teams come together and watch them work together well and effectively to a place where I can kind of step back from them and see that they've built relationships and that they're going to continue to go on to do leadership that's maybe in line with what they've done on a team that I've led, but it's adjacent to it and using the skills that they've gained. So I have such fond memories of during the transition between like leaving the Martell presidency and watching all of the former exec team members move into different roles and then gather around like the new Martell president person and see them all like really excited and start planning together and just realize that those are bonds that got the chance to form like in a team that I led, and now they're going to go on and do such awesome things and be successful together and lead the college in a really good place. So it's really those end moments with people that make me really happy and really like proud to be a student leader and to have led different groups.
And going back even further, what do you wish that you had known as a first-year student at Rice that you know now?
I guess I can go first. I guess one thing I wish the kind of values that underlie representation are there's a lot to understand there, and I think during my time in student leadership positions, especially as president recently, it's very hard to walk the line of like representing over 300 people, and then also understanding that everyone's not always going to agree on things that you do and like have the same feedback. And it's kind of walking this line of how do I make as many people happy and make their experience at SID and at Rice better, while also making changes as well that sometimes might be targeted for a specific like minority population, kind of also going into what Bryan was talking about earlier with like being a leader of color and like also representing like a wider population. So I just think I wish I had known as a first year student that going into those roles, there's going to be times where not everyone's going to be happy with what you do, and kind of understanding that you're going to have to have thick skin and really and I've now learned how to have more opportunities for feedback and input before implementing changes. So kind of having that patience to really hear as many voices as possible while also being able to like make the final call that's going to benefit as many people as you can.
I think as a first year, something that I did emphasize was kind of limiting my extracurricular participation and involvement. And so as a first generation student, that's something that I had wanted to like kind of prioritize to make sure like I had room to like be flexible and like grow and like adapt with different study skills, and managing like what I was actually going to do from the club listings, like listservs that I was self-selecting into from the club fair. And so I think, but still, I feel like I suffered a lot from like imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of students, like, seniors and undergraduate professionals that I've talked to, like alumni, like people like still going on in their careers, that's something that they still experience too. And so I think and for those, I guess, who aren't really aware with the concept of imposter syndrome, but it's the idea that you feel like you don't belong in a certain space. And because of that, like you feel like you might be a fraud or you might be a joke. And you just, you kind of like shimmied your way in through somehow, not really because of your merits, but because of chance or maybe even an error. And so something that I wish I'd known as a first year student, I wish um, I would have had my strength within myself to tell me that I belonged here, um, that I was valid, and that I had like something to contribute. And I feel like looking back over the 4 years at Rice, I have seen like in the different ways where I have led and I have contributed to the Rice community, probably sharing like opinions and ideas that like had I not been there, they may have been said in different spaces. And maybe even like more tangibly, when I said a couple of times, we've invited the vice president of admissions who identifies as Latinx, and she's come to kind of debunk this idea of imposter syndrome for new students and returning students, usually at the time of midterms. And so this happened this past year. And we were thankful to have her because even as a senior, like it was still very emotional to hear, to remember that like these people who have read your admissions files, they did so with care. And because of that, like we certainly like do belong here and are meant to find success in our own ways.
I think one thing I really wish I would have realized as a new student was just because you're in a position of leadership doesn't necessarily mean you have to do everything by yourself. Oftentimes, as a leader, you're surrounded with the team, and that team is meant for you to utilize, so that way you don't have to shoulder a lot of the burden. And that's something I think I was really bad about. I would tend to try to tunnel through things and really kind of do them my own and be self-sufficient. But over the years, I'm glad I've been able to learn sort of how to rely on the people that are placed around me, really trust them, and sort of diffuse that responsibility, because one, it enables you to get things done a lot more efficiently and a lot more effectively. And then additionally, it's just, I think, a greater experience overall being able to share sort of those successes and those moments with people, as opposed to really just trying to take on a lot of that for yourself. Yeah.
I completely agree, David. I feel like what I would have wanted to know too is that one, you're going to make mistakes and they will be okay. They will hurt in the moment and might haunt you for like 2 weeks. And then it starts to wear off. And as long as you don't forget the moral of the story, which could have been, ooh, just do not do that ever again. Or could have been a process-based thing, or could have, there's so many reasons why something could be a mistake, but just keeping in mind that just because I made one mistake does not mean that, oh my gosh, everything is coming down and I'm a horrible leader and I should not be here. It's just a function of being a human being, and that is so okay. And often what I found to be the most effective way to feel okay after having made a mistake, because that's still something I feel, is to reach out to other student leaders. Be like, hey, have you made a mistake recently? People are like, yeah, I have. Did that yesterday. It's like, oh, okay. So we're not alone here. And then also realizing too that you cannot be in control of everything. I think that's definitely a tendency that I have, and that I want to try and just grip on to everything to prevent things from moving in certain ways, or just I have to keep it all together. But you cannot control what other people do, and it's better that way. So that's something someone told me freshman year. And so now whenever anyone asks me, what do you wish you knew? I'm like, you are not in control of everything. Because it was definitely something I needed to hear. And if I can share that with others and it be what they need to hear, that's really important to me.
I think those are some good takeaways in terms of through the variety of experiences that you have all had during your time at Rice. A question that came in from one of our attendees today was, have you had any unexpected opportunities because you are a student leader?
I think I have, and they've really been, most of them have just been opportunities, I think, to connect and meet new people that I don't think I would have been able to meet outside of my leadership position. So as a student leader, you are constantly engaging in conversations to really try to help, the people you serve. So kind of in the process of doing so, I've been able to meet a lot of people within the School of Engineering and just throughout Rice in general to really try to see how we can help improve the quality of life here for Black engineering students at Rice. So I think being able to have those conversations with people and being able to really engage with the people who are making those decisions has been a great opportunity for me. Also to just see sort of what goes on behind a lot of those processes and decisions that we see and are affected by.
Yeah, definitely going off of that, like, especially with everything that Sid went through this past summer and fall semester with like being spread out across campus, I met some amazing people in Rice Housing and Dining that I didn't really know as well before. And I learned so much about one of like the most hardworking departments at Rice and the how genuinely they care for students and how I could like work with them to produce the most, ideal outcome for students. And then another one as well was also this summer when we were going through a lot of crisis management things as a president cohort. Being as someone who's elected to represent my college, I didn't really anticipate as much of the campus-wide crisis management input that we would be able to have. But over the summer, like working to create, like I got to work on the expectations and enforcement committee that kind of created like the public health ambassadors, the COVID-19 court, and like having the opportunity to talk through that whole decision-making process and also learn from like student judicial programs, how they really think through things and how we could create an environment where there was a culture of collective responsibility on campus, I think was a really unexpected experience that you don't think like, oh, as someone representing SID, that's what I'm going to be doing. But it taught me a lot, and I definitely appreciated that opportunity.
I completely agree, Nia and David. And I think as well, it's been so interesting to be in a position where people expect you to know a lot about a lot of things. And so I never, when I was a freshman, thought that I'd be in a place to be like helping with the crisis management team and still get a chance to be a member of those meetings and of that community that has become such a tight one over the course of the past few months. And then simultaneously be like, oh, can you go look at these different architects that might help with the student center and give your opinion on architecture designs, which is something that I never thought about before until a few weeks ago. And it was like, how do I comment on architecture? And what does this mean for student life and how this will help build community? Or get the chance to like help select our new like vice provost of DEI. So all of these different spaces where, again, would have never anticipated myself and have met the coolest, most compassionate people who I never realized were all in students' courts and prepared to fight to support students. It has really just helped me see as well how important it is to, after Rice, go out and meet as many people as possible and be honest with them and be open with them so that they can do the same with you and support you as well.
And another question that had also come in earlier was in relation to student government. So I was wondering, Anna Margaret and Nia, you might be able to speak to this in a little bit more depth. If you could just give a brief synopsis of the overview of Rice student government and different organizations and interfaces within those.
Nia, do you want to talk about residential college government, and then I can talk about campus-wide stuff? But I know you know about that too, so.
Okay, I'll start. I have a whole like tour guide spiel that I give when I talk about student government, so I am so excited. So basically, like Rice almost has like a state and federal government system. That's like the analogy I compare it to. Basically, what is equivalent to the state government is your residential colleges. So all the residential colleges are actually self-governed in a lot of ways. They have their own budgets that are given to them by the university. And within those governments, there's, vice presidents, presidents, secretaries, treasurers that manage the budgets. And then there's also committees such as social committees, diversity committees that help plan events that are inclusive for the entire residential college. So And there's also new student representative opportunities as well within the residential colleges that we reserve specifically for new students that matriculate the next year to be able to have opportunities to represent that population. And so one connection between the residential college government and the campus-wide government is the college presidents, because all of the college presidents are both the head of their own residential college government, and then also have a vote and input in the campus-wide student association, which Anna Margaret can explain.
Yeah, so we also have like that federal like campus-wide government structure called the Student Association. And so we have a Student Association Senate, which is where all of the voting members that stretch across campus come together every Monday night at 9 p.m. to talk about campus-wide issues and what things that we want to be doing to advocate for students. And so our voting members in the campus-wide government include, like Nia said, our college presidents, but we also have people called our college senators who are elected usually as sophomores or juniors into the position of senator, and also have a role in legislating and driving the direction of our Senate. Then we also have new student representatives, which is how I first got involved in the Student Association, who are appointed by their college senators and presidents to come to the Student Association Senate for their first 2 semesters at Rice, learn more about it, be involved in our Student Association committees, which are sort of like what Nia said in terms of a bunch of different spaces where students can work on projects or topics that are important to them and very specific to things like environment, athletic sustainability, mental health and well-being, and stuff like that that are very concentrated. And then we also have these things called working groups and task forces, wherein students can look for even more specific things to work on and drive an initiative in that space that's completely of their own creation and accept other students to come work on similar issues with them. So for example, I was on a working group called the Financial Accessibility Working Group, and we produced a report on the state of financial access at Rice. And so those have actually a lot of really great potential to create change on campus that I'm not sure that everyone realizes. And so I'm always super excited to share more about that. And then finally, we also have our like treasurer side and blanket tax side of the Student Association, wherein the student fees that the Student Association collects are then distributed out to different blanket tax organizations like our Rice Thresher or RPC, or the Rice Program Council, that puts on a bunch of events for all Rice students. And so we help manage those funds and support those organizations to the best of our abilities. I think I covered most of it, but love questions about student government and I'm similarly excited.
And I also added a link to the essays website within the chat as well. For the question that was in regards to contact information for the clubs that our panelists are currently involved in. I know they've been adding those into the chat. I'm also going to add in a link to the chat to our LNS platform, which is where all of our clubs get registered through. It's new. This is only the 2nd year that it has been in existence. So it's been very handy in our current pandemic to have a virtual platform. To more easily browse the clubs and organizations that are available to students at Rice. So in case you're curious what other opportunities are on campus, that might give you some additional insight into other organizations that are present on campus. In any given year, we have between about 280 to 310 registered clubs on campus. So there is a lot of options for students to select from. Another question that came in was, are there any types of additional support that current student groups would like to see from alumni?
So this past semester, we've been relying a lot on alumni connections in SID. So the community outreach chair, Valentina Camacho, she's been taking the initiative on working with SOLAD, the Society of Latino Alumni at Rice, to spearhead this project called the Trayectorias campaign or series. And so what it is, it's in late October, we've been having several events where students from our organization can chat with and learn from and meet and exchange contact information regarding specific career fields. So we had 4 this semester. We focused on medicine and medical school, law, engineering and nonprofit organizations. And so that was super interesting because sometimes people want to focus on leadership based on identity and just look at how that is manifested in specific career paths. And so I'm looking at nonprofit work, and it was great to connect with them. And and so we will be planning to do the same series in the next semester. So if you would be interested in sharing your wisdom or connecting with some of our students, you can feel free to email me on my personal email, my personal Rice email, or the organizational email that I included in the chat.
Along that same note, kind of with alumni, I think just kind of as Bryan was alluding to, like having alumni come in and really just sort of show what life is like after Rice, especially like in various industries. I think having alumni, especially like alumni that represent the populations that we have, come in and really kind of showcase what their experience is like, outside the hedges, and going forward really helps to, I think, contextualize everything we're doing. I think a lot of times at Rice, it can sometimes feel like you're in a bubble a little bit. So being able to see, where a lot of the stuff you're doing is going to end up and how that's going to look for you once you leave, eventually, it is very nice. I think just having those perspectives and hearing them.
I agree, David. And I think too, as well, there have been times in which alumni have reached out to me in more so like the student leader capacity, but been like, I see that you're doing this work and that is so cool, and keep doing that work because it's making an impact. And I'm like, you took the time out of your day to tell me that this is good? Like, oh, thank you. And it really does help to see that people take notice of what you're doing and what you commit lots of your time to. And I think as well, I believe that there are different organizing structures within the alumni base. So one way that the Student Association is connecting with alumni right now is that we're working with the kind of alumni diversity, equity, and inclusion committee or group, and connecting them with our Student Association Equity Council so that they can talk together about what things alumni and students can work on as a coalition in that space. And that has just been a really cool opportunity. And as someone who really believes in the power in numbers and just the strength of both the alumni and the student voice, I would love to see more collaborations between alumni and students. And finally, at a residential college level, it's awesome to see really engaged alumni who are excited to come see you and serve as associates and introduce you to some of the things that you care about. As someone who served as an O-Week advisor as well, it's great to get excited affiliates when you're advising new students so that you can introduce them to you. So if you're interested in getting involved with residential college life and serving as a mentor or as a support to new students or kind of older students as well, it would be so appreciated. And then one more thing, I'm a humanities major and switched into it from a science major, and finding alumni who've been able to share with me, you can do really cool things after Rice with a history and French major has been really reassuring, as has some of the Life After Rice's as well that Alexa's helped host on what to do with the humanities degree. It's just reassuring to see that there are opportunities out there that you hadn't previously known about, and that will make you really happy.
I'm just going to quickly echo the associates program within the residential colleges as a great opportunity for alumni.
Well, and as our last question, you've been talking about what you have experienced during your time at Rice. If you could each, briefly talk about what are some plans that you also have after Rice as well.
Okay, I'll go. Yeah, so after Rice, I'm hopefully going to law school, currently applying to those, and then one day using my law degree for some form of policy work. And I think a lot of my student leadership experience at Rice has definitely helped, I guess, me develop a more specific understanding of what I want to do with my career. it's been great to have the opportunity to learn how to like do a needs assessment of a population and learn how to advocate for students with administration and kind of find, you know, common ground where we can make, you know, concrete solutions for some of the problems that students have. So I think definitely like my experience with leadership at Rice has played a large part in me finding that goal after Rice, and I'm super excited to, I mean, it's bittersweet, you know, to leave Rice and graduate, but also knowing that Rice has done so much through my leadership roles to kind of prepare me for all of that. So I'm excited for what's coming.
I think I can go next. I'll be graduating this year as well. And then I expect that I'll eventually want to attend graduate school, but I'm not yet sure on which program or path to take on. So some examples are like law school or like public administration or international relations. But for now, I'll be conducting a job search in some of the large cities that focus on policy and like less specifically like Latinx and Latin American advocacy and research work. Also thinking about though doing an international job search and returning to Brazil after having studied abroad there this past semester. I'm also of Brazilian heritage and just doing some work back there for maybe a year or two.
I can go next. I'm like, which one? I am also going to take a step back from school for a minute and just kind of think about what I'm most passionate about. But I eventually would love to end up doing a master's in public health, seeing as start out Rice wanting to be a doctor, realize that path is not for me, but health is still something that's at the center of my interests and what I think is most important. So I'd love to be back in a space where I could work on health policy and then focus more also on maternal health. And yeah, just see where that leads me.
Awesome. I guess gonna kind of segue off of Anna Margaret. So I'll be attending medical school upon graduation. I was fortunate enough to receive my first acceptance offer a few weeks ago. So very exciting. And I intend to really work on addressing healthcare disparities and serving underserved populations using my medical degree. But yeah, that's.
Well, and I know we are right a minute over, so thank you all of our amazing panelists for your thoughtful responses. Your cumulative time at Rice is longer than I have spent at Rice, so I really value everything that you've shared today. So thanks again, and thanks for Alexa for putting this together.
Thank you all so much to our amazing panelists. We've got some incredible student leaders at Rice, and I'm glad that y'all had an opportunity to get to hear from some of them. And thank you, Kristen, for moderating and highlighting some of the ways that current students can get involved on campus. I think all of the students have mentioned the importance of mentorship and networking and developing that strong Rice network. And so for the alumni, parents, even the students that are on the call, I'd encourage y'all to join Sally Portal. It's Rice's own professional development and mentoring platform, and it helps to create those connections. And you can be anywhere in the world to give back to a current student, or if you're going to be graduating, you can mentor current students as alumni and parents. And so would really love to see you on Sally Portal, another virtual way of engaging. But I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Hope you can catch some of the other OWL Together events that are going to be happening today and tomorrow. And have a great rest of your Saturday. Happy Halloween. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.